Fiddle is Jim Sadlish. And guitar is Kevin Gardner. I want to say neither of them are Newfoundlanders. But they learned some Newfoundland music, which is good. I'm not a Newfoundland reader, and I'm not an expert on Newfoundland dancing, but that's what you got. I want to say a couple of things about the dance and the music. Inextricably bound up, of course, but in ways perhaps different than you would expect. Newfoundland dance is traditional set dance. It comes from, I'm pretty sure, Irish set dance. The difference being a lot of the figures are the same and the movements are the same, but in the Irish, of course, they have the prescribed steps. A reel step, a jig step, a polka step that goes with the dance. In the Newfoundland, that sort of got lost. You'd never see a Newfoundlander standing still, mind you, but they've got their own individualized steps, sort of. And so they keep that going. And the dances, of course, in each little community, because they weren't connected with roads or anything, they were isolated, and they basically had one square dance, and the lancers, and a cotillion or something like that, and then a reel. But they all sort of developed a different method of doing it. So there's, I've got about 4 or 5 different variations on the square dance, but it's the same dance. It's just they do it different, and there would be 5 or 6 figures in the dance, and like an Irish dance, it progresses from a crossover until the finally end. At the end, it's a close in when you bring the dance together. So that's a bit about the Newfoundland dance. And as Rosemary was saying, is they didn't have halls to start off with; they had kitchens, and they take the furniture out. They actually take the stove out as well, because they're not covering very much. They're not covering a hall. They're covering a little space, so they can move faster, and so the dance can pick up the pace quite a bit. And then there's Newfoundland music, which is something else again. Most of the dance, at least on the west side here, we're going to do that dance from Daniels Harbor area, Northern Peninsula Square. Most of the dancing in that area, the music is all jigs, almost all jigs. You would know them as a regular 6/8 jigs, like Haste of the Wedding, that kind of thing. They call them double jigs, and they almost double the speed. Cape Breton, for instance, the jigs run at about 120 beats a minute, and Newfoundland is 160. So they have double jigs. They call them double jigs. And Rufus Ginchard is the main fiddler from there, Dan Harbor. You may have heard of him. He's the guy that played the fiddle on this side. Instead of this way, he had it tucked in his shirt here, and it's because his father had a fiddle hanging on the wall. He wasn't allowed to touch it. So, of course, when his dad went out, he'd grab the fiddle. He's looking at the window to see if his dad's coming, and the bow was hitting the window. So he moved the fiddle across and hooked it in his shirt. He could play this way, so he couldn't play a fiddle if he had a t-shirt on. He had to have a shirt with a collar. But anyway, he says, the main thing is, he says, you don't dance to the music as much as you play music to the dance. And that is really a different... I mean, of course, they're together, but it's not the musician sitting up playing a tune and the dancers fitting into that. It's the other way around. And the Newfoundland fiddler fits into the dance. So that a lot of people figure, well, Newfoundlanders, they can't count because some of their music, like Sidney Pitman's tune, it's got an extra beat in it. Oh, they can't count. Can't you count to 6, you know? No, it's what's happened, Rufus says, is he'll be playing the fiddle, watching the dancers, and they're coming around, and they don't have enough time, so he gives them another stroke. So then the music, you see, is contoured to the dance, rather than the other way around. And so that becomes the tune then, because he's played the tune to that figure, that becomes the tune. So there's almost all this stuff, none of it's square. And it's 6/8, 6/8, 6/8, then there's a 3/8, then 6/8, 6/8, 6/8, so on. So difficult to write out. The other thing is, their reels, they mostly call them step tunes. They were for step dancing. They didn't dance a lot of reels to the step dances. And then the end of this set dance, they usually had, they went to single jigs. And single jigs are Took me a long time to figure out what the difference is, but a single jig is basically an Irish polka, except a little bit faster, because it's in Newfoundland, of course. But the big difference is an Irish polka lifts. It gives you that lift that you need for a polka, and so it lifts on the second beat, but Newfoundland singles don't. They're the other way around, like muscles in the corner. All down, 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 down. And so that they're step dancers, there's no lift, there's no bounce. It's all down and real close to the floor. Barely move their feet. It's just, well, they're moving like crazy, but it's not up. There's no lift on it. So that's a Newfoundland single. So I think we're probably ready to go with some, we'll do the Northern Peninsula Square. So lovely thing about Newfoundland is they can fit almost any people. A square doesn't have to be just 8. They do mostly double squares, so it'd be 16 people, but I think we can get three couples here on the ends, 3 couples and maybe 4 on the sides.